Barnstable this morning. I'm Sarah Colvin. Time to talk finance, and for that I welcome our Director of Finance, Mark Milne. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So a big night for finance at Town Council this week, starting off with the annual joint meeting between Town Council and the schools. Tell me a little bit about the purpose of that particular coming together.
Sure. This is a meeting that's required by the charter every year to bring both elected bodies together and provide them with a report on the financial condition of the town and some preliminary budget projections for what we're projecting for the ensuing fiscal year. So it gives us an opportunity to talk about the finances of the town with the two elected bodies.
Indeed. And for those viewers who may not be aware, I think Barnstable is a bit unique in the way in which we deal with the school portion of the budget. So can you briefly talk a little bit about how Barnstable does that and how it's a little bit different from perhaps how other towns might do it?
Well, we do run the consolidated financial operations, so we're heavily involved in the development of both the school department's budget as well as the overall town budget, including all the enterprise funds. And we do have this joint meeting, which is, I think, kind of unusual to bring all the elected officials together for a joint meeting. And we have a revenue sharing agreement in place where every year the town manager and superintendent sit down and talk about a revenue sharing agreement, which helps build some predictability into their budget development process as well. And that revenue sharing agreement also includes a sharing of the town's reserves so that that can be considered as an additional funding source when developing capital and operating budgets for both the school department and all the other departments. So all of that is kind of unique than what most communities do.
Great. So Thursday night, when you do make the presentation before Town Council in terms of the financial picture of the town, I would think that, given all of our conversations over the past few weeks, we're looking at a pretty good picture.
Fiscal year 2014 was a very good year for the town of Barnstable. We actually generated some surplus and saw some growth in some of our revenue sources that look to be maintaining that growth into fiscal year 2015, which is encouraging. That will help us balance operating budgets for 2015. But we still have some pretty major challenges ahead of us, which we'll review tomorrow night. Principally on the capital side, infrastructure needs that we have are pretty large, and we also have some unfunded liabilities associated with employee benefits that need addressing. So we are fiscally healthy, but with challenges, just like almost every community out there.
Absolutely. How much detail, Mark, do you go into in the report that you'll be making before council on Thursday night?
Not too much. I mean, we could spend quite a bit of time on a number of different subject matters when it comes to the town's finances. So, I mean, it would take a 1 4-hour meeting just to sit down and go through all the details. So we try to highlight the most important factors regarding the town's financial condition because of that. And so we won't go into too much detail. Maybe about a half an hour presentation. And again, focusing on the highlights, the good and the bad, as to challenges and positives that we're seeing.
Sure. And will there be any, Mark, discussion either before or after in terms of that joint school committee town council meeting in terms of the finances, or is this more of a kind of an opening to the discussion?
Yeah, it's more of an opening to the discussion. We don't. It's not designed to have a lengthy question and answer period afterwards. Looking at the council's agenda, they have a number of items that they need to focus on that evening. So I don't think it would give us the opportunity to go into any one of these particular financial areas and explore them in depth. But we can do that through the budget development process and upcoming meetings if that's the desire to do so. But definitely during budget development, we dig into this stuff on the administrative level, to a very far degree.
Absolutely. Definitely an important part of the budget discussion, and I think important information, not just as we head into the dealings with the schools for the budget, but really for the people, the residents of the town, to get a look at what the financial picture is moving forward.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Great opportunity. So I think for those who may not usually tune into Town Council, it might be a good chance to check it out and hear that presentation. Mark, I wanted to talk a little bit about the last item on the agenda for Town Council, and that is loan order rescissions. And very curious about what this is. I think we could use some explanation as to, what we're dealing with here. And I think it's just kind of some paperwork housekeeping, correct?
Sure. It's exactly what it is. It's housekeeping. We have a number of borrowing authorizations that were approved in previous fiscal years for which we no longer have the need to borrow that money. This is not money that's sitting in the Treasury. All it is an authorization to go out and borrow money if we needed to. Most of the borrowing rescissions are associated with airport improvement projects, and when we appropriate funds to do a major capital improvement at the airport, the biggest one on that list is the terminal. We appropriate funds and with the authorization to borrow the money to do the construction work. Well, subsequent to that appropriation, the federal and state government kicked in a majority of the money to perform all of the improvements out there, including the air traffic control tower, the terminal, the new access road that was built. And so we never had to borrow that money. And so periodically we'll go back to the council and we'll look at all the capital appropriations that we had for which there was not a need to borrow money for, and we'll rescind those borrowing authorizations. There are also projects on that list where the borrowing authorizations exceeded the actual cost of the project, so we didn't have to borrow all that money. And so the balance that's left over that we didn't borrow, we're rescinding those as well. So this is a housekeeping matter. It's similar to, so let's say Sarah was going to go out and buy a brand new car. You got a loan authorization from the bank. They were going to loan you money to buy that car, but your rich uncle came and called you up and said, "I heard you need a new car. I'll buy the new car for you."
That sounds awesome. Can that really happen? That would be great.
Yeah, I know. But then when you run your credit report, you see this. You have this loan hanging out there on your credit report with no money borrowed against it, but the loan is still hanging out there, showing that you have this credit available that you could access, and you want to get rid of that.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're doing. We have. With an upcoming bond issue in another month, we have to report on our official statement all of our authorized and unissued debt, which is what this is. And because that tells an investor this is potentially what the town could go out and borrow if they wanted to. Well, we're going to decrease that list significantly with this council order, and it just helps clean up our records, our financial records.
Indeed. So kind of important to note that even though we're looking at a total of like $48 million, that's what that is. That's not meaning the town's going to get a windfall of $48 million. It just means there's going to be a correction. So why, Mark, does this have to go through town council? Why can't it just be something that is kind of cleaned up in accounting?
State law. When you rescind a borrowing authorization, we have to have the legislative body do the rescission. We can't just do it ourselves.
Indeed. Is this something, Mark, that's done on a yearly basis, or is it something that's done, more kind of when you kind of see it kind of creep up like this? It looks like there's some, council orders that go back all the way to the year 2000.
Yeah, we do it. We do it as needed. We probably don't need to do this in order to issue our next bond. It's not going to affect what we receive for an interest rate, most likely on our next bond issue. But we just felt it was time. You can see there's a number of projects on there. The last time we did it may have been 5 years ago, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. And so we just felt it was time to do some housekeeping, and it coincided well with our bond issue, our upcoming bond issue. So we decided, well, this is a good time to do it. Let's clean up. And some of the older ones that were on there, the last time we did this, those projects were actually still being worked on, and so we didn't want to bring those forward in case we needed to borrow those sums, and so we're bringing them forward now instead.
Great. Well, Mark, I thank you so much, as always, for joining us and offering those explanations. Very useful for our viewers and for our community. And we will talk with you again next Wednesday. Have a great day.
You too, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Mark Milne, of course, is our Director of Finance here in the